Welcome back to Inside Politics. We're taking in-depth looks today at the Syrian civil war, not from a geopolitical point of view, but from some other areas. We've been talking first about what's been going on in terms of the destruction of historic sites in the area. We've been talking about the genocide of particularly Christian minorities in that area. In this final segment, we're going to talk with Professor Dr. Dr. Richard McGregor, who's an assistant professor of religion and Islamic studies at Vanderbilt. First segment, we talked to Dr. Betsy Robinson, who's a professor of art history and classical studies at Vandy. And in the second segment, we talked to Professor David Michelson, assistant professor of history and of the history of Christianity at Vanderbilt. Dr. McGregor, I want to talk to you a little bit about what ISIL actually is. It's most people these days in this country now begin to believe it is Islam, but it's really only a splinter group of that religion.
Right. I think that's very important to make the distinction between these apocalyptic jihadi movements and to contextualize them within the much wider global and even American Muslim community.
Why is it taking such hold, such power and control within the Islamic world itself? It seems to become the dominant feature there, even though obviously in terms of size it's not.
Right. It's an ideology that had much greater impact than its numbers warrant historically. I think it's this a combination of a dramatic, provocative ideology that embraces violence and legitimizes violence in the context of a political vacuum in the region that has sort of opened the doors for these adventurist projects.
Now, it is so out there in terms of some of the other groups. Why aren't the rest of Islam uniting against it to try to at least limit its scope? Is it because there's just such a vacuum of what's going on politically in that area, and so therefore they can take control?
Yes, I think what we might call traditional Islamic voices have been marginalized under brutal regimes in the region, and have again not been able to stand up and to keep these radical elements within their own communities in their place.
Now, for most Americans, they see what's going on with ISIL and they try to figure out, well, is it part of what they understand the Islamic world to be? Is it Shia or is it Sunni? Which group do they fall in, or do they fall in their own separate group at this point?
In important ways, they are in their own. Perspective. They are a let's say fringe, violent version of the Sunni majority. So when they turn to deal with minorities, minority positions such as the Shia, they are mobilizing a violent and extreme version of what the majority generally recognizes as principles of Sunni Islam. But here's a group that are taking it to an extreme and backing it up with dramatic violence.
Now, this part of the Middle East was once known for supporting, nurturing sophisticated sort of secular societies, but now the area seems to be so dominated by this religious fervor and division. What's happening? Why is that happening?
I think that the wider story is, again, the undermining of, we can call it, sort of traditional mainstream religious voices. They were very often targeted as potential opponents under Saddam Hussein, or in Syria under Bashar al-Assad and elsewhere. Moderate mainstream religious voices were targeted and marginalized. That was politically expedient to the dictators, but what it left was, again, a discursive, conceptual vacuum into which these extreme voices and adventurers even step in and take the stage.
Now, as somebody in this country who has a deep understanding of the Islamic faith and knows what's going on in terms of the differences between ISIL and the Sunnis and the Shias, in this country more and more people are seeing Islam as ISIL, period. We have presidential candidates now saying we should never elect anybody president to be who's Islamic. Does that concern you? Because obviously the way people perceive things may be the way people vote and the way policy is shaped.
It does concern me, and I would want to make a call for us as an American community to secure our future by supporting our Muslim neighbors. Surely the greatest break on extremism, on Islamic extremism, is good, strong Muslim communities. Right? The sort of traditional majority will be the break on extremism. We need healthy Muslim communities in America and elsewhere to control
as we move towards the end of this, we're seeing this, what appears to be this mass movement of refugees. Now, the war's been generating refugees since the beginning, but why are we suddenly see so much focus on the refugees and how much movement we have with large numbers of people going from that area, trying to get into Europe, trying to get in other areas?
I think we need to understand that the situation has changed, that with the war going on now for 4 years, people just are not able to live their lives, and they're being worn down and becoming desperate, and real catastrophe is looming, and people essentially are panicking, and it's now showing up in the numbers, and the numbers are becoming astronomical, and I would say these are communities in panic.
Are we just seeing the beginning of this? We're going to see even more of this movement of refugees going on?
I think that as on the ground, things will become more and more polarized, and communities will become more and more disintegrated. Again, we want to support communities. We want to support strong Muslim communities here or abroad or in the Middle East or in Europe. They are the break, and they're the future of a healthy world that includes Islam and Muslims.
Dr. McGregor, thank you for joining us. Dr. Robinson, thank you as well. And Dr. Michelson, thank you. We appreciate you all being on the show. And thank you for joining us this week on Inside Politics. Hope you can be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough politics in the meantime, go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. There's a new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.